So a quick reminder that last week I talked through this short search story, and in this I was saying when I was doing my literature review, I started with a very simple keyword query. I didn't get many hits, so I had a look at a few of those, and that gave me a clearer idea of what I was searching for, so I did an advanced search. And that was better. In fact, I found a few good papers, and I checked those in the ACM classification scheme. So I was finding where they'd been categorized, and then I had a look at the other papers they'd been categorized in the same way. And I also picked a particularly good one and did a citation search based on it. Anyway, I'd got quite a few good papers by then. One particularly good one, I just checked to see if the author had published anything else. At that point, I thought, that's enough. Enough is enough. And I used Mendeley to store the 20 best papers I'd found and generated a bibliography using that. So I think that little story contains a number of use cases that could be turned into user interface patterns. A simple keyword query, an advanced search, a citation search, a classification-based search, an author search, and then the use of Mendeley to store citations and to generate a bibliography. Each of those is a distinct use case, and the patterns that we would document would be based on use cases. So if I'm telling that story in a more detailed way, I could use the portfolio tool to do that. And then it might look something like this, where I provide some words. I started my search with a simple keyword query, and then here's me doing that. So it's the same story, except I've interspersed short videos to show what it actually looked like when I carried out those use cases. So the first thing I did there was a simple search, and I could represent that as a pattern in this sort of a way. Now, this week I was thinking, so if I go into week 3 here, that it would be worthwhile having a look at this website. So this is a website for this book. Now, I don't think you need to get hold of this book. We don't have an electronic copy of it in the library. It is a useful book, but all the stuff that you need from it is available from this website. So what they're doing is they're trying to come up with search patterns. They're not actually quite the same kind of search patterns that we're trying to specify, because we're thinking specifically about scholarly search. And I think their emphasis is more on the kind of searching that you would do if you were looking for music, or you were looking for things that you might wish to buy on the internet, or a holiday. You know, searching for things to do with everyday life, not to do with writing a literature review. But nevertheless, the idea is very clearly related to what I'm asking you to do for this assignment. So they have one kind of pattern which is not the same kind of pattern that I'm asking you to produce. It's a behavior pattern. So it shows how people conduct searches. And it's saying here that one thing people do is pearl growing, which is a pattern that says find one good document and then use that as the basis for finding more. So you do some kind of search, and then at some point you've got yourself one good document, and somehow you would use that to find other good documents. But that's a behavioral pattern. The patterns that we're interested in are design patterns. And one example of that is autocomplete, one we've discussed before. Now, if you want to see the documentation for that pattern, you can go over here on their website and click on this link. And you'll see that Peter Morville here has organized the patterns that he's describing very well using a Flickr gallery resource. Now, I'm not asking you to do it this way. For me, in the ePortfolio tool, you can write the details of each pattern as if you were doing it in a word processor, except that you'll be embedding a video for each pattern. But this is a nice way to show the different patterns. So the first one here is autocomplete, which we're very familiar with. And one of the things he's doing is giving you examples of that pattern. So we're familiar with that one, aren't we? You know, that is one of his illustrative examples. So if you were using autocomplete, I'd expect you, not to use the words that he's used, use your own words. And then your illustrative examples would be coming from, say, Summon, Google Scholar, IEEE Explore, ACM Digital Library, not Wowhead or Apple. So one thing he says here is that autocomplete gives you a nudge by suggesting things your query might be, but he points out that there's another pattern, which is linked to here, called Best Bets, which is where as you're typing the query, you get results provided. So to be clear, this is a pattern that would be applied in a situation where people who come to the website often have the same query. So there's a query, the query might be, what are the best job opportunities for web designers? Something like that. But this is a website where that topic is discussed, so the people who come there quite often ask that question. So what they may have done is come up with a good list of documents that are the answer to that question. So not allowing a piece of software to produce a ranked output, but providing you with a list of documents that a human being has identified as being the best answers to that question. And we can do that because the same questions are being asked over and over again. So it's a bit like a help desk, a technical help desk, where people are always phoning up with the same problem. So if you have a script, you can give them the answer from the script. So that's a different pattern from the autocomplete. He's called it Best First, and he's got some examples of it here. And he's saying that it's often used with faceted navigation tools. So that's another pattern. Faceted navigation, if you look at it in Amazon, is where you have this list of facets down the side, and you select one of these topics to filter the search. And you'll be aware that in Summon, you can do a faceted search by selecting it's just books, or it's just journal articles, or it's just reports. So maybe you do that if you were using faceted navigation as one of your patterns. Your illustrative example might be Summon and that set of facets that are provided with Summon. Now, what I'm expecting in addition to that is for you to provide a short video of you using the pattern. So let's say I was going to do this for autocomplete. So what I will do here is I'll go into Google Scholar. Okay, now I'm in Google Scholar. I'm going to type in information architecture. Well, straight away I've got autocomplete working. And if I were to just say, why is this pattern helpful? I could say, well, before I started this search, I didn't really know anything about this topic. But looking at this list of topics, I'm beginning to get an idea of better queries than just saying information architecture. Some of these might be more interesting queries. If I do the whole thing, then you get these different topics. And then that Information Architecture Institute website might turn out to be a useful one. However, these are all journal articles. So the Information Architecture Institute, interestingly, is something that you would have found not using Google Scholar. Using Google because it's a website, so I type Information Architecture here. And, the things that are appearing are different because it's a different search. But the job description for an information architect, that might be interesting. And as I go through the full thing, there's this set of references that I could pursue. So a video of me using this feature in Google would be a useful addition to the description of that pattern. If I go back to Google Scholar and say I've decided to have a pattern based on citation searching. So in Google Scholar, if I want to do a citation search, then I click on a link here. And then if I wanted to see the papers that cited that one, I can go off. Now, this is very good. It's a very interesting kind of search, this, but there's no easy way to backtrack to the things that I didn't look at in these different lists. And I can imagine getting confused, but just think about this for a minute. Prior to the existence of computers, there would have been no equivalent way to do this kind of search so quickly and easily. If libraries were still full of books and papers and didn't have computers. So it's worth saying that there's a little video there which would have illustrated using the citation search option. In the ACM Digital Library, they also offer a citation search option. So if I see the results of the same search here, first of all, if I was looking at this in detail, it's interesting that they're not the same. So Google Scholar doesn't give the same documents as I get with ACM Digital Library, which is in itself interesting. How do I know which one is the best? Interesting question. Looking here, it tells me how many times these papers have been cited. Some of them have been cited 0 times. If I pick one that's been cited more than 0, so 23 here, and then I wanted to do the citation search, it's here on this tab. So those are the papers. So again, now I'd pick that and follow the citation links. So this is me doing. Now, the question is, it's the same use case, the same pattern, but implemented in 2 different ways, which raises the question, which of those 2 is the best one? If you have a clear idea of that, you could say so in your documentation of the pattern. So just to sort of conclude this, the idea is that the main thing for task 1 is to come up with 8 user interface patterns that are useful for scholarly information seeking. For inspiration, you could look at what Peter Morville has done here, because these are search patterns, just not quite what we're looking for, but certainly autocomplete and best bets and faceted navigation are 3 patterns that you might choose to use, but you would describe them as they apply to scholarly information searching. And your illustrative examples would be drawn from search tools like IEEE Explore and the other ones that we've been looking at. Then there'd be a short video of you using that search technique as a part of your actual research project. So if you say my topic is the Internet of Things, each of the little videos should show me I should see you finding things on that subject using the pattern. Ideally, in the video, if you can do this, it should be well chosen to show that it's been genuinely helpful. So ideally, if you can do this, you'd have a situation, say, where there's a ranked output of documents, and you click the citation link on one of those documents, and it takes you to another page where there's a lot of very useful and interesting material. Then that would have shown the power of using a citation search option, and that would have been the justification for including it in the pattern catalog that you're producing. At the end, I'm hoping that I'll be able to find, from the work that you've all done, say 20 or so patterns that are to do with building scholarly information-seeking tools. And I would then put that collection together in the way that Peter Morville has documented these patterns. And we would then have a resource to access when designing scholarly search tools. So it'd be an interesting start point, that. How useful would that be to people who are designing search tools in the future? Anyway, that's a little bit beyond the scope of the assignment, so I won't say any more about that at the moment. Thank you for your time and for your attention.